Hello and welcome to Sticky from the Inside, the employee engagement podcast that looks at how to build stickier, competition-smashing, consistently successful organisations from the inside out. I'm your host, Andy Gorham, and I'm on a mission to help more businesses turn the lights on behind the eyes of their employees, light the fires within them, and create tons more success for everyone. This podcast is for all those who believe that's something worth going after and would like a little help and guidance in achieving that. Each episode, we dive into the topics that can help create what I call stickier businesses. The sort of businesses where people thrive and love to work, and where more customers stay with you and recommend you to others because they love what you do and why you do it. So, if you want to take the tricky out of being sticky, listen on. Here we are again then for another episode of my Sticky from the Inside podcast. And today we're going to discuss a topic that will probably, if I'm honest, feature quite a bit from time to time on the podcast because it's a topic I love. It's a topic that I think's important to businesses and very in tune with, I guess, particularly how younger people are making decisions about companies and brands, including who to work for. And because there's a lot of evidence to show it has a hugely positive effect on business performance. But also, I think that there is a ton of confusion about what it is, what it's for, and we're talking about company purpose. And in particular today, I want to focus on its people unifying powers. And with me, through the power of Zoom, to get stuck into this topic today is Julian Saipe. Now, Julian is a former opera singer, and that's my first ever opera singer on this podcast. He's an entrepreneur, he's a business leader, and the original founder of Zafferano, which over 15 years became one of London's most highly acclaimed food and event management brands. And after that, in 2018, the company was acquired and Julian exited. But don't worry, he's okay. He's now a member of the Forbes Coaches Council and an international executive coach focusing on leadership and executive education with the aim, and I love this, of bringing new consciousness to human performance. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Andy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here, my friend. We have got a lot to cover today, but I cannot leave the opera singer thing just hanging there, right? So please tell me a little bit, where's that come from?
Well, I grew up in a musical family and I sang as a child. I was a chorister and one thing led to another. I then took boy soprano roles with the English National Opera and Royal Opera House. And it was such a formative part of my childhood and who I am that I just made the assumption that that's what I do when I grew up, I guess, and when my voice broke. And so after university, I went to music college and trained, and lo and behold, I'm singing at the Royal Opera House. And that's what I did for 8 years before I decided that I wanted to be a businessman.
The easy transition, right? Yeah. Amazing. Brilliant. I mean, we have so much in common. I was a chorister. I wore a surplice and a robe and all that kind of caper, and sang for the Queen Mum the night that she swallowed a fishbone at Westminster Abbey. Do you remember that night? I mean, that's a long time ago and showing my age, right? But wow, I didn't know we had that connection. I mean, mine stops about the age of 16 and yours clearly went on a bit, but that's nice. That's nice to know.
I mean, what's sad right now for me, actually, and I was just posting about it on social media, is the decimation of the performing arts. And, you know, I don't sing professionally, but I live the professional careers vicariously of all my former colleagues. And to see them all not doing what they were born to do is really painful. So as soon as opera and live music comes back, the better.
Oh, well, I mean, I think that's right. It's so sad to see. And I think opera, I mean, I've had a couple of powerful experiences with opera. I mean, I literally genuinely have Pavarotti's version of Caruso on a playlist in my iPhone. And if I put that on, I'd nearly always cry. I mean, there we are, proper sharing. But it's such an emotional thing. And I'm not saying I'm a massive opera buff because I'm not. I'm probably far more Bon Jovi than Bizet, I would have thought. But there's a really strong emotional connection that's given off between singer and audience when it's good, right? Would you agree with that?
Without a doubt, and I think we'll talk about the human element in the workplace, and actually with bel canto singing, which is the traditional operatic style, which is about using your body to its full potential. Your throat is open, your larynx is low, your rib cage is open, you have diaphragmatic support. This is sound production using the full potential of the human body. This is not a fabricated pop singer sound, albeit I think there are many great pop artists, but that traditional bel canto style is about maximizing the resonant potential of the physical self. And I think there's something for us to learn about that when it comes to talking about the human in the workplace.
I couldn't agree more, my friend. And without wanting to sort of use a virtual crowbar to get us into the topic today, that emotional human connection is, I think, one of the principal elements behind fashioning a workable, usable company purpose, right?
Absolutely. I was listening to something last night, and it was talking about the difference between desire and vision. And
nice.
If I think back to my career as an entrepreneur, I reckon, with hindsight's a wonderful thing. I look back and I think that my drive was fueled by desire and personal ambition, and my steep learning curve was how to embrace, or rather how to sort of capture a vision and share it with people and get people on board. Because I think if you're entrepreneurs, there's a big ego trip about being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of vanity, and I see it in the young entrepreneurs that I coach. How can entrepreneurs step away from their personal goal and desire and share a vision to which embraces the collective?
Well, nothing gets done without the will of the people, right? So that's hugely, hugely important. So from your perspective, what is it going to take, or what does it take to bring more of that humanity into businesses today? I mean, can you define what you think that really is? And does it have a difference to aligning yourself to a noble or a social cause, say?
Sure. Well, I think it's, we think of the business and we think of the goal, and we think of the return on investment for stakeholders. But I think it has to start with the individual and the self, and where the individual and the DNA of the founder of the business, or the DNA of the brand, where all those things coincide, and understanding that, the authenticity of the person leading the business in tandem with the authenticity of the brand, and how that story is understood and shared is pivotal. So yes, I think we can touch it. It does start with the identity either of the person or of the reason for the business itself.
Yeah, and you touch on the fact of the effect on the people inside the business, outside of that entrepreneur, the leader, the driving force. And I think as a member of the workforce, really understanding your place, your contribution to that purpose can really, I think, serve as a hugely powerful form of emotional compensation, if you like. It's more than the cash. It's another reason for being in the business that you can connect to and can help kind of drive your interest, performance, desire, whatever that may be.
Sure. I like to think of it as people often talk about the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And if you think of let's use the metaphor of a pebble, the pebble drops in a still pool of water, and you get those lovely concentric circles. And the pebble is the essence. It's the starting point for whatever it is that's going to resonate with other people. And, if we think of leadership, whether we want to talk about leadership or whether we want to talk about brand, but in a way they belong to the other, that if there's a truth about that starting point, whether we want to say, the mission or the vision is crystal clear to the person who embodies that vision and then shares it, and the whole impact ripples outwards. We all want to receive positive waves, positive energy that we can make our own. And so I think that ripple effect is a lovely metaphor for something that's got some truth about it and people believe it.
Yeah, I mean, belief's massive. right? Massively important to, I guess, the effect of the purpose. In your time in building businesses, successful businesses, and fostering a real kind of culture of can do and belief, what were the keys to driving that belief in the purpose for you?
Sure. Well, I mean, I look back at my business career, and I simply would divide it into two parts. One was ego. And there I reached a ceiling point where there wasn't a place I could go further because I couldn't take people with me. And post that sort of vanity trip, there was this realization that I needed to create an ecosystem where everyone could show up. So just to quickly give you a little bit of insight, in part one, as I said, it's driven by personal desire. This is what I want. This is an expression of my personal energy, my vision, my goal. Come with me, or you'll get left behind, or I'll get very frustrated. And I think there is a stereotype of the entrepreneur that kind of throws his toys out of the pram when things don't go well. And then for me, there was a wake up call of, we have something very good here, but I'm not quite sure how to make it happen. And I think that moment of vulnerability and humility and a realization that I actually didn't know how to do it was the gateway to me going out and attracting and looking to work with people who could help me, actually.
That's incredibly interesting, because I think that fork in the road is the place where you win or lose, right? Because a load of guys will continue, I think, to try and push the vanity project, but that's only going to take so many people with you. It can only get you so far. And unless you see that there is an alternative fork in the road to bringing more people with you, you're limited, right? You're limited on how far you can go. You need that groundswell of people. You need more people to believe, more people to come with you, to create its own momentum, to really take that thing to full effect. Well, that's my impression. I mean, you're a man who's been there.
You're absolutely right. It really was a fork in the road, and I took the proverbial road less traveled, and it did pay dividends, but it was a very painful journey in the sense that we had to do this whole audit on, this is not the Julian show. Why are we here? Why are we here? We're in a very competitive market. It's a level playing field of companies doing exactly the same thing. Why are we here? And we did, it was about reflecting, me to reflect personally, and also as a collective to reflect on, people talk about refreshing your brand and doing a brand audit, but it really was deeper than that. It really was a question of why are we here?
I mean, that is the fundamental question behind purpose, right? And I think it can be seen as ethereal, fluffy sort of question. Or why are you answering? Why are you even asking that sort of stuff? Interestingly enough, Julian, I was lucky enough to go to a foundation forum the other night, led by Charlie Dawson and the guys from the foundation, and some amazing speakers, including Sarah Gillard, who's head of mission for John Lewis. And they are going through right now what they call, the 100-year project. You don't change your purpose that often. It's done about once every 100 years. And bless her, she has the can on this project and takes it incredibly seriously. And she talked about that particular question and a real nervousness about walking around, talking to employees, customers, suppliers at a time that we're dealing with right now, and asking this question of, well, why do you think we're here? Why do you think we exist? And really nervous about what the response would be in something that could be perceived as, like I say, quite airy-fairy. And she was staggered by the response, because employees, suppliers, customers, I mean, they all wanted to have their say. They all wanted to contribute to that. So for anybody thinking that well-written question of why do you exist, that it's overplayed, unnecessary, and a bit for the birds, you need to wake up, because I think opening that door really can release a huge tool for driving your business forward, for really sort of driving an incredible momentum and unifying power behind the people that make it happen every day.
Sure. I think that, reflecting on your why is absolutely fundamental. And you use the word airy fairy, that the purpose is something sort of intangible, or it's up in the clouds. And actually, and I'm talking here from personal experience, because, if you think of John Lewis, this is a sort of highly evolved organization. And I'm talking about a much smaller business. But, to step back and ask that question, to reflect, and often, where you come from, what is your personal transformation story? Why is that impactful for other people? Mm-hmm. And, in my case, it was very much about performance. It was in the strapline of the company that I grew, and it's in the strapline of the coaching work that I do, that, performance is this lovely metaphor for changing people. We all love a great performance. There's something about it that makes our world different. It's also about our own potential. We talk about performance, and I'm also very clear to point out that, performance, when it's talked about in the workplace, not as in terms of attainment, but much more about growth and behavior. How can we perform to our best? How can we be our best selves? Not just achieve the best results for someone else, but really bring wholeness into what we do.
I think that's great. I think that's good. I think actually just picking up on one word for you that's a trigger for me, and you talk about the strapline. I think that's where loads of people get hoodwinked with purpose, and they believe it's all about having a funky strapline that will somehow galvanize everybody. And the reality is those things are brilliant for communication, right? The strap lines are very, very useful tools, but it's the detail that goes behind the complex and comes out as simple that's the real key in this. And that comes from having a really warts and all honest look at what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, who wins, why they win, all those things. So it's just more than a strap line. And this is a guy who's loved strap lines over the years, but they are at least to an end.
I mean, we could have another podcast on strap lines.
Love it.
Am I allowed to wear my coaching cap and challenge you on that strap line idea?
I expect to be challenged.
So I totally agree with your point that you can't change the world with a strap line, and actually it's that sort of incremental unpicking exactly what everyone wants to do, should be doing, and piecing it together moment by moment. That's the real work, of course. But I think in the strapline, there's straplines and straplines. There's a strapline that you pick off the internet for your business card, mm-hmm. and there's a strapline that really defines intuitively why you're in town. So I think, to believe that to come up with a strapline and for that to be the answer to your big question is wrong.
Yeah.
But to reflect on a strapline that is really true to your purpose and sort of intuitively who you want to be and how you want to do it is a great starting point to then say, well, okay, we're in the game of big performance here. What does big performance look like? How can we unpick it? What does big performance mean to you? And then start to extract all the goodness and possibility in that one word or that one line. And then start to flesh it out, a bit like the ripple effect. That stone on its own stands for nothing.
Absolutely, I think we're actually agreeing. But I come back to, I guess, the metaphor of purpose and what it's really there for, and why we exist. The stock answer for lots of people who think about it is, well, we're here to make money. Right? No, money is the result of delivering against your purpose. And to me, the strapline is the result of the thinking behind your purpose. So I think it has an incredibly important place. I think it's just that it's the glitter that people can sort of focus on, but it's the depth that you really need to understand to have something that's going to work for your business and really become a kind of driving force for it going forwards.
Sure. And again, are we talking about businesses, SMEs, large organizations? And I think that this is a huge subject matter, and it's complex, and sometimes I'm nervous about banding around abstract ideas, but I think we are going to be seeing a shift in, and I'm going to use my own word here, consciousness.
Nice.
From organizations where the sole purpose is a return for their stakeholders, to organizations that, as Frederic Laloux says, embody more of a living organism sense, so that the essence of what that organization does resonates, vibrates with the people that show up every day, or want to show up every day, want to bring their whole selves. You know, this whole talk of entrepreneurship and collective wisdom. People do no longer want to be servants of someone else's plan. People want to feel like they're part of something, they're part of a community, that it's shared endeavor. The creativity is a collective thing, and I think the times are changing.
So I think that's an interesting point to sort of get into another area, which is what is it that then is stopping more businesses taking time to think properly about what their purpose is and what their organizational shape behind that looks like? I mean, the Laloux stuff about teal organizations is, I mean, it's quite, when you read that book, it takes a while to the theory of it sounds lovely, but it's quite an abstract notion, right? It's a complicated thing in essence to get your head round.
It just shows how conditioned we all are, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of fear. What, as you say, what is it that's stopping us make this shift? I think it's fear. Yeah. I think, we're stuck in a rut of a particular model. The free market has gone mad. Free market has been a great thing. It's been a great space for individual expression. Look what we've seen over the last 20, 30 years in terms of innovation. However, it's been exploited, and we're in a dangerous place now where if the sole purpose of an organization or a business is to produce a financial return for the people who aren't even in the business, then this is where we've got a problem. But I think the people leading these businesses are indebted to their investors and stakeholders. And therefore, as you say, why can't we just shift it? Or why do these new ideas feel so radical? I don't think they are radical. I read them and I kind of think they make total sense to me. However, I think underpinning that shift is a lot of fear, a fear of change, and a fear of, well, hang on a sec, I'm sort of in it for myself, and I'm in it to make someone else's lot good. And I'm talking about the sort of the top tier of involvement here in terms of leadership and ownership and investor stakeholders, but we've sort of left something behind.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I always found it tricky in businesses when I was putting together plans or communications to try and engage the workforce, when the conversation was around the benefit of doing this is we'll make more money for shareholders. I can just see the crowd in front of me as I stand up at a conference stage and deliver that. And they're all on their feet clapping, going, yay, make more money for the guys with the money. Brilliant. Thank you. That's hugely engaging, Andy. I'm coming over the top with you. And that never worked. And I think this is this switch. It is finding the place for the people in your business to be able to kind of unite behind something that means something to them, that adds some worth or greater worth to what they do, and that they can really see how they're contributing to it. Now, that's a much easier message to go and stand on a conference stage and deliver to someone to try and engage and motivate and inspire them. And the result could actually be even better for the shareholders by doing that, rather than that kind of, I guess, myopic focus on the end result. But that's my experience, that's my theory, but that's what drives a lot of what I think and talk about.
I think we're seeing a change for sure. I mean, even in Laloux's book, he's got 12 case studies of teal organizations, and some of them very, very large organizations. Some of them haven't worked. Some of them have sort of compartmentalized within the business what is teal and what is non-teal. But I think that it's exciting stuff. And if anything, we need to immerse ourselves in these ideas, even just to challenge the status quo.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a link to Lalou's book, Reimagining Organizations. Reinventing Organizations. That's
and actually, I'm going to use his strapline because I know you love straplines. Inspired by the next stage of human consciousness.
It's a fascinating read, and we'll put a link in the show notes for anybody trying to get their head around this process. As I said, the basic premise makes complete sense. Taking the leap to doing it is another kettle of fish.
Well, just to say, as Lalou himself says, you need a board, you need a CEO, you need a leadership team that are totally on board with these ideas. And it might take 6 months to even a year to coach the conversation towards making these, which are, there's seismic shifts in how organizations are structured.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've looked at what we think is stopping us. We've looked at the theory of it all. I mean, when we've spoken before, you've talked about that almost heart of authenticity right at the core of everything. I mean, can you elaborate on that, on your feelings towards authenticity when it comes to purpose?
Sure. I think it has to start with ourselves. It starts with ourselves. I don't think you can create a brand narrative. You can't create a structure around something that isn't real.
Yeah.
And so I think it starts with ourselves. Forgive me if this sounds absolutely outrageous, and you're talking to a former classical opera singer, but I was watching, and this is my kids' generation, I was watching Lizzo from Glastonbury live.
Nice.
And she says we can't save the world until we save ourselves. And unless we know who we are and why we're here, how can we inspire trust? How can we ask people to dig deeper into their creative thinking if they don't feel safe or they believe the person that's inviting them to do that? So I think it does start with ourselves, and authenticity is about bringing wholeness, all of ourselves, not just our sort of trump card and our sort of our ego, but bringing our vulnerability, bringing our questions. I love the work of Hal Gregerson. His book, The Questions Are the Answers. As soon as we ask a question, we create huge possibility. If we come in with the rules and saying this is how it's going to be, we immediately shut down possibility. So if we're talking about unifying purpose, if I come in and tell 1,000 people this is how it is and this is what you will do, where does that leave them?
Yeah, nowhere. Or in a very difficult spot. I mean, tangible, intangible things. There's a combination here of making these things work that probably includes a bit of trust, passion, and belief, harnessing an attitude behind it. But then you're still going to need the tangible things to kind of make these things happen, right? You're still going to need some process. You're still going to need some goals, and you're going to need a relentless kind of pursuit of this thing, right? I think those are some of the key factors that will make these things work, will make them things real. Is that the path you trod? Is that what you saw?
I mean, I'm thinking of the here and now in COVID, and I've talked a little bit about this. How do you show up as a leader, or how does an organization show up during COVID? And asking these questions rather than panicking or some knee-jerk reaction that creates a plan that no one really believes, and instead sitting with the uncertainty. And that is real. If we're talking about authentic, it's authentic to sit with uncertainty and discomfort when the way forward is unclear. That is real. That is authentic. And unless we allow for that space, we won't know what could have emerged. So I think authenticity is not, I think we think of purpose and potential and performance as doing things, often doing things. I'm going to be my best self, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hit that goal, I'm going to get that return. But sometimes authenticity and potential is about just holding the space, just being present. I feel even in this moment, we've addressed this issue, and I can feel there's there's a little bit of powerful silence here.
Yeah.
And that's real. And authenticity is about being real. And unless we explore that, we sort of shut down where we could go.
The silence is, I mean, if this was a really good mic, you just hear an awful lot of brain cogs whirring, Julian, which happens every time I sit and listen and speak to you. So I'm actually quite pleased I've got, a pretty basic microphone here, because you just hear rusty cogs whirring. It's very, very thought provoking. And it's the fastest half an hour I think I've had in goodness knows how long, which means I'm fast running out of time, and we've barely sort of scratched the surface. But I want this podcast to be a real practical tool for people, even on, some would say abstract topics like purpose. I don't think it's abstract at all. I think we've discussed that it's not abstract at all. It's a very real thing. It's a really galvanizing business tool that more people should take advantage of. But I have this part in the podcast, Julian, that I like to call sticky notes, right? So this is the attempt to sort of get theories onto 3 sticky notes, because I have not a massive capacity for taking information away, and 3 sticky notes normally works for me. And so after every guest has kind of blown my mind, I ask them for 3 sticky notes. These are the things that my listeners can practically take away and use to start moving forward with engagement or improving their workplace culture, or even things like defining a purpose. So if you were to leave behind your 3 sticky notes on the virtual wall of Sticky Studios here, what would those be?
Well, I think all 3 come under the banner of space.
Okay.
And I think that the first one would be allow some time to stop and reflect. That's my first sticky note. And that could be a regular practice, or it could be a considerable chunk of time. You'll know what's right for you. I think then, in the name of space, allow space for yourself in terms of your self-management, and just asking that question of why. Who am I and why am I here? And then the third sticky note is to create space for other people. We've asked that question of ourselves, and now I ask that question of you. Who are you and why are you here? And to create that space. And when we've both understood who we are and why we're here, how can we align those 2 sticky note number 2 and 3? How can we bring our 2 spaces together to create something special?
More silence from me while I take those sticky notes in. Amazing stuff. A lot to think about there. Julian, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. I'm going to have a headache after this as I go away and create space to have a think about things. I think my takeout from this conversation today is that having a common human-focused purpose it's not just about being on vogue or having a rally cry. It's a genuine, real opportunity to encourage alignment of effort and resources, but to affect a really concentrated, potent result in the end. Amazing. Great. Julian, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate that. And I've absolutely loved talking to you. Thank you very much.
Likewise, Andy.
Okay. Speak to you soon. Take care. Okay. If you'd like to find out more about Julian and some of the things that we've spoken about today, you can find some really useful links in the show notes. So that concludes today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it, found it interesting, and heard something maybe that will help you become a stickier, more successful business from the inside going forward. If you have, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps. I'm Andy Gorham, and you've been listening to the Sticky from the Inside podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.